What's up, Magical Misfits? Drew here, and today I want to talk about altars. So I kind of wanted to do an altar tour because I've never done that on my channel. While I upload to my She Who Walks Facebook page once a month, like a time lapse of me redressing my altar, I've never actually done a legit tour. And I don't usually show anything here on my channel with that. So I kind of wanted to do that. But then coincidentally, I would say sometime last week, I was chatting with 3 of my witchy sisters and the topic of altars came up. And it occurred to me, I don't know, this is one of those topics I think within witchcraft, and there are many, that mean one thing to one person and something else to another. Okay, so let me give a mundane example. Those of you who celebrate Thanksgiving, I'm sure when you talk about or think about Thanksgiving, certain things come to mind. Maybe there was a specific pie that your parents always made or that you always make. The dressing, stuffing is a particular type in your celebration, or do you do regular mashed potatoes or yams and sweet potatoes or both? Or, there's a whole thing in your mind of what that looks like that might look completely different and probably does look pretty different from a lot of other people. I know when my mother was still alive and I celebrated Thanksgiving, we had gotten to the point where we stopped doing traditional Thanksgiving at all, and we just made whatever we wanted. We would make cheesecake and lasagna. I mean, we didn't actually make lasagna, but whatever. We just did not do the whole turkey stuffing thing because we just got tired of it. And I, of course, no longer celebrate Thanksgiving, so whatever. At any rate, it's just an example of how the same thing, the same topic, the same idea can look very different to different people. And I think this is true of altars. Actually, I know this is true of altars just from my conversation with my friends. And this is something we're aware of, right? We're aware that not everybody sets their altar up the same way, or not everybody uses their altar the same way or thinks about their altar the same way. But it's still, I don't think, something that is readily on our minds when the topic of altar comes up, because we just automatically go to the place that's comfortable and familiar to us. At any rate, the conversation got my wheels turning, and I just think it's really fascinating how different we all are and how many ways, there are so many overlaps, again, with the different tools we use and how we use them, or the different rituals or practices that we have and how we go about them. This year, there have been so many changes in my path. Definitely last October to this October, there have been a huge number of changes in my path. And the way that I look at things, my perception, and how I use things and how I go about my practice, that is very different than it used to be. That I guess I'm just in this space where I'm thinking about the differences. And I don't think that they matter as far as one person's more of a witch or something. That's not what I'm getting at all. I just think it's really fascinating. And I actually think it's one of the most beautiful things about witchcraft is that it is so customizable. It is so personal. And even though, we say altar, or we say, casting circle, or we say whatever we say, candle magic, whatever it is that we're talking about, different people have a different picture of what that looks like in their mind when we're talking about it. I think that's great. I love that. At any rate, the conversation really reinforced that I want to do this altar tour. And I just want to show all of you who are interested what my altar is about. I do have a couple different altars. I have a prosperity altar in the studio. I have a love altar / shrine here in the living room. I have a Santa Muerte shrine, sort of, a shrine for the dead. I guess it could be called an ancestor shrine. I have my ancestor altar up here on my working altar, but that's more of an active thing. I have a shrine to my, I guess, matron. But then there is my altar, my working altar. Used to be, my altar was wherever I wanted it to be. I did not have a set working altar. I just did magic wherever I wanted to do magic. I did have my prosperity altar and my love altar and some shrineage going on, but I did not have a place to specifically do magic every time I did magic. I have had this altar like this for a little over a year now, and I absolutely love it. Here I am 13 years into my practice, and it's the first time I've ever had a permanent, specific space for working magic. And I really do, I don't think it's necessary, But for me, I feel like I'm building energetic layers of power and, whatever, good witchy vibes. So I'm very happy about it. It makes me very happy. So again, for anyone who's new to this concept of altars, I don't know. There isn't I wouldn't say a right way to have an altar. Maybe there's a right way to have a specific type of altar. I don't know. But I would say, from my personal experience, your altar can be whatever you want it to be. It can look how you want it to look. And this is my altar. And this is what it looks like. This is what makes sense to me. This is what works for me. So I'm going to show you and explain to you what everything is and why it's there. Now, it does change once a month. I personally like to redress my altar at the first of every month because I like for my altar to carry the energy of that month. And of course, if there is a Sabbath in that month, then I incorporate that into the dressing as well. There's no Sabbath this month, so it's just for November. And the energy of the moon, not just the full moon, but the energy of this month is for me encapsulated on my altar. Next month, December 1st, when I redress my altar, of course, it'll be dressed for December, but it'll also be dressed for Yule. Quickly, before I get into it, for me, the month of November is this sort of transition between Samhain and Yule, and it's all about divination. Whether or not I practice divination heavily this month, that is the energy. Dreams, visions, the moon, even maybe, emotions, what have you, but scrying, using pendulum, tarot, like whatever method, cowrie shells, runes, whatever method any individual might be drawn to, for me, that energy and that influence and that ability is really heightened this month. So that's kind of a theme in the way that I have dressed my November altar. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now and I'm going to show you. Goodness gracious. All right, so here is a full view. This is a chest that was purchased for me by my mother when we lived in Okinawa. I think I was 14 at the time. I don't know that it will be forever my altar because the carvings make it a little challenging sometimes to get things set up properly, but it is a good space. It's nice and big. It's at the height I want. So, who knows? It may be my altar forever. Up the wall, we have all kinds of goodies. Okay, this is my Yule wreath. I have a wreath for the Sabbats. I do not currently have one for all of them. I need Lunasa and Bialtane, and I actually have the grapevine wreath for Bialtane. I just need to decorate it before then. So then I'll only be down one, but I change it out in between the Sabbats. Like I try to go like halfway in between the Sabbats. So I just had my Samhain one up there the other day, but I've taken it down and put my Yule one up. This little guy, I want to say he's like an antelope head. I don't know, but my husband bought him for me ages ago. And we had different altars at the time. I had a shamanic altar, but essentially I've combined all of my altars into one for a working altar. So he's up above. I love this. It's a little spider. My son made this, my youngest made this for me when he was in probably, I don't know, second or third grade. I love it. This is my ancestor rattle I use to sort of shake up the energy and call in the ancestors when I want them for working. Isn't this the cutest little besom? My husband brought that for me recently. And these are coffee beans in some sort of mala. I'm not really sure where it's from. My husband got it secondhand and thought of me, brought it to me. There's my drum. This is my shadow box for my mother and her father. And here is some of my mother's graveyard dirt. And this is like a little protective herb crystal charm that I made for her when she was alive. A picture of my mother, a picture of her father, and like that's a bracelet. Her totem was the rabbit, and that's a bracelet that we put together. Over here is a shadow box for my dear soul sister who gave me the name She Who Walks Between the Worlds, and all kinds of things that made me think of her. This little plaque, or it's actually a plate, a tray. It's porcelain. It's an antique that's been passed down in my mother's family. My husband's bowling and athame are above the altar. This lives on the altar permanently. Matches and lighters up in the top. There's nothing currently in the drawer. And down below, I keep some of my oils. It lives on the altar. The face, my youngest made him in pottery class. He is the cutest thing ever. I love him. He always lives on the altar, and he holds some of my incense, obviously. This piece of wood is here just for this time. It's just something that's cool. It kind of looks like a water buffalo jawbone or something. I don't know. I just think it's cool. It's weathered. It's something that we have around the house outside, and I want it on the altar. Back here, I keep a room spray. It smells like India temple incense, and this is an elixir, you put it in water and drink it. It's a flower essence, I think. They live on the altar. And back here, I have my Making Magic cards. They live on the altar all the time. I use them in spellcraft and what have you. They're always tucked away somewhere. So this is my ancestor altar. And this is just a little meditation bench that I've put on top of my altar so that there's a special space for the ancestors. This is a crystal skull. If I'm not mistaken, it's agate. And I think it's pretty obvious why I might have a crystal skull on my ancestor altar. Here's another one over here. He is also a form of agate. And yeah, crystal skulls for the ancestor altar. This is water that's always on the altar. And again, an antique passed down through my mother's family. This piece was my husband's. He kind of volunteered it over to me, as it were. But a lot of my ancestry is Native American, and my husband has Native American ancestry as well. So kind of speaks for itself. This, I did a video on this. I can link it, hopefully, if I remember, my spirit powder video. This essentially is a spell to strengthen my bond and my link to my great-grandfather on my father's side, whom I never met and don't know. And it's through his lineage in particular that I feel the most connected to my ancestry. At any rate, I don't have anything of his, never knew him, so this is how I decided to try to connect with him and his family and those ancestors. And as I said, I have a video all about how this works. This is just a spell bottle that I made with a witchy. I call her witchy. She doesn't identify as witch, but she's definitely witchy, even if she isn't a witch. At any rate, we got together for a play date after Hurricane Florence came through and made these protection bottles for our home. This is just a feather. It is from a mockingbird, and I don't know, why not? Here's my Ancestor Candle. I've done a video on that. This is a totem of my spirit animal, the golden eagle. This is an oil, a prosperity oil that was made for me by Jonna, who used to be on YouTube. Her videos are still up. I will link her channel. She was Artemis Nightingal here on YouTube, but she passed away last November. This is a penny to represent my mother. Her name was Penny. This is a piece of amethyst. I don't know, I'm drawn to put it there. It has something to do with my mother as well. This mortar and pestle doesn't live here all the time, but it's here right now because this is the anniversary, again, of Jonna's death this month. And I wanted to put it on my ancestor altar. Underneath, I have, these are amethysts. They're amethyst beads. I use them to grid when I do journey work. So I make a Merkaba grid with them and then lay down within it and journey. This is what is called a Shaman Stone. They are formed, I think, in the Grand Canyon. I don't remember, but the river makes them do this, and they're good for all kinds of things associated with shamanism. Journeys, altered states of conscious, that kind of thing. This is a piece of Smoky Quartz, and it's actually tied to a protection spell for YouTube. It lives under my ancestor altar. All the things that I have showed you so far are always on the altar, except for obviously what I pointed out, not always being there. These beautiful pagan prayer beads were made for me specifically by the lovely Erika from Raw Spirit. I will also try to remember to link her channels. I'm gonna have to write all this down, all these links I want to put in. At any rate, it's moss agate, tiger eye, and then just these little howlite skulls, and then these beautiful pieces down here at the bottom. And it is an ancestor. It is specifically designed to help me connect with and work with the ancestors. Now over here, the things that are always on the altar, it is obviously a candle holder that has an eagle on it, again, a representation of golden eagle. And I have some rope incense living inside there, and there's a feather. Then here is my teacher crystal. A teacher crystal is a crystal that has an image inside. You can see something, a person, a place, whatever, mountains. You can see something inside. And in this one, I see mountains and I see an eagle. And again, it is a totem of my spirit animal. This is always on my altar. It is a beautiful candle that was gifted to me by the lovely Maria, Wood Witch 172. She does have a channel, though she doesn't post a whole lot, but I will leave a link to her channel and her shop where she sells her candles in the description. But again, a totem of my spirit animal living on my altar. I do have some other representations that come and go from the altar, but this is what I have right now. Another piece that is always on my altar somewhere is this bowl. This is my Smudge Bowl. It actually belonged to my soul sister, whom I showed you earlier, who gave me the name. It was her Smudge Bowl. Now it's my Smudge Bowl. And inside it, there's some loose smudge, some ash. There's a piece of cedar wood here. This is a smoke cleansing wand that I have made from herbs in my garden that I grow. It's one I use most right now. Here is a cedar wand that is always on my altar. And I also have a braid of sweetgrass that always lives on my altar. This candle snuffer always lives on my altar. I don't snuff every working, but I do snuff candles quite a bit. So I like to have it handy all the time. My wand lives on my altar all the time. This is something that I created myself. It is a copper tube that I put this beautiful amethyst into that was gifted to me from my dear friend who made that witchy home blessing bottle with me. And then I embellished it with polymer clay. And there is a hematite ball at the end. The other thing that is always on the altar is this Incent Burner. I actually made him myself. He's all broken and cracked up, like all of his little leaves are broken, but he's the green man and he's on a tree stump. And yep, that's my Incent Burner. This is often, if not always, on the altar. This is my husband's Pagan prayer beads. I actually made them for him last Yule. This has iron filings in it for protection. There's the heart and bird skull. And they're lava beads and Amazonite beads. And then we have things that aren't always on the altar, that are just here for this month. This is my Hernandez candle. You can't see the image anymore, but there was a really cool image of him in the form of a deer and a tree mixed together. I loved it. But this actually will probably be here until at least Imbolc, maybe Ostara. It is my sort of dark half of the year candle that I like to have on the altar. I don't actually have a light half of the year candle. I should probably make one. And if I do, it'll have the green man on it. But I already showed you the piece of wood. That's just there because this is a piece of orgonite and it is really good for scrubbing energy, energetic cleansing. And I don't know, I just felt called to put it there, honestly. I don't know why it's there this month. I do have a clear vision in my mind of what I want on my altar, but then I also get intuitive hits and I follow them. It's a piece of fishtail selenite, again, cleansing. So there must be some cleansing because I've got another thing, another piece of selenite over here that I felt drawn to put on. So yeah, cleansing must be important this month. This is actually photos of a family that we give to Heffer International every year. And if you don't know Heffer International, oh gosh, another link, is an organization that like you can buy bees or you can buy chickens or you can buy a cow, a goat, whatever. And they give them to underprivileged families in parts of the world where they can make a living off of owning a cow. You know, they can feed their kids and clothe them and send them to school and whatever. And this year they sent us a picture of the family that we helped. And I just thought it was lovely, and I wanted them on my altar because it reminds me of the kind of world that I want to live in, a world where we help each other and we look out for each other. So at any rate, whatever. I will put a link for Heffer International in the link in the description. Here is my goddess rock. My god rock is on the other side. And I made these again out of polymer clay, and I just kind of wanted them to look like you walked up on some rocks and they happen to look like God and Goddess. Now, obviously you wouldn't find a rock like this, but I just wanted them to be really rough and sort of primitive, I guess. I have different representations of God and Goddess that I put on the altar, and I don't always have a representation of them on the altar, but I felt called to put them on the altar this month, so I did. There is always some sort of offering bowl, and it looks different each month. It's just what I'm called to this month. I really liked this horned god type image for this month. I really associate the horned god with the darker half of the year. So, and there's a medley of what I call love offerings. So flowers and herbs that other witches have given me. A lot of this is from Trish of BeanbagHagWag. Another link. Yay. Gosh. Actually, if I just want to throw out all of the links, I won this deck from Little Cosmic Crow when she had a giveaway. So there's another link for you. All of the people I have mentioned are wonderful, and you should absolutely check them out. Okay, so just behind the offering bowl, you can't really see them, but I have these amethyst shapes. So these are the Platonic Solids, and I don't know why I felt called to put them on my altar this month, but I did. I do work with sacred geometry in my practice and in my magic. So here I have Dowsing Rods because, again, I associate November with divination, and these can be used for divination. This is something that the lovely Trish from BeanbagHagWag made and sent me. And to me, it kind of reminds me of like the all-seeing eye. It reminds me of an eye, the evil eye, you know, something. So third eye. That's why I've put it on here. I have two little owls. One is agate and one is tiger eye. And other than wisdom, I don't know. Again, I was just drawn to put them on here. This is my pendulum. It is made of a Bodhi seed. The little box is what it usually lives in. This here is my intuition oil. This is a compact mirror right here. It's on here for a couple reasons. One, you can, you know, do mirror scrying. And the other is there's a practice that I picked up from someone else on a shamanic path that involves using a mirror to observe the world in a different way. And I don't know, I can talk about that in other videos if anybody's interested, but I'm not going to get too into it. These are two candles that my husband makes. This is angels and guides. And this one is peace, which I'm actually going to burn this for someone. That's why it's up here. And then I have my selenite candle holder, which I actually prefer to use as a cleansing and charging station rather than burning candles in it. I have my crystal ball, obviously to represent scrying. The herb that I have on my altar this month is Uva Ursa. It is associated with intuition and psychic ability, all that good stuff. I often like to have an herb or two on charging on the altar, bringing in the intent. Lastly is my amethyst geode, and mostly it's just there because it's pretty, but I also do feel like it looks like a cave. It represents a cave to me, and I associate caves with inner journey and wisdom and enlightenment and initiations and transformation and all kinds of stuff. So I wanted it on the altar. Basically, that's it. This has kind of been a long-winded video. I don't meditate at my altar. I don't do astral journey at my altar. I don't do anything other than connecting with the ancestors, honoring the ancestors, making offerings to spirit the ancestors. If I'm feeling a bit under the weather or I'm just feeling kind of out of it and I want to feel connected more to spirit, I might spend time at the altar. I don't do tarot readings at my altar. I do magic at this altar. I connect with my spirit animal, my ancestors, spirit in general, and I do magic workings. And that's about all, you know, honorings, offering, stuff like that. I do my consecrations, any magical act, but like tarot readings or meditation or astral journey or anything like that, I personally don't use my altar in that way, though I know witches that do. And this is me getting back to this thing that's so fascinating to me, that we're all so very different, and that the same concept, the same term, the same thing can mean something so very different to so many different people. I hope that wasn't overly boring. Just trying to give everybody a little insight into one way of doing things, of creating altar space the way that I do. If you hung out this long, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. And until next time, much love and gratitude.